You have a memory of your first day of school. Maybe it's blurry, maybe just a feeling, the smell of the classroom, the sound of a door. You have memories from when you were 3, 4, 5 years old. Fragments, yes, but they're there. Your brain was working, you were conscious, you were experiencing the world. And yet you have absolutely no memory of the single most dramatic, physically intense, cognitively overwhelming moment of your entire existence. The moment you were born. Not a flash, not a feeling, not even the ghost of a sensation, nothing. A complete and total blank, as if you didn't exist yet. But you did exist. You were right there. Something erased it. And the explanation for what that something is will change how you understand every memory you think you own. If this is already making you question something you've never thought to question before, subscribe and hit like. There's a lot more where this came from. Now let's go deeper. Here is what your brain was actually doing in the hours and days surrounding your birth. Neuroscientists at the University of California, San Diego, led by researcher Alyssa Bott, have documented the extraordinary neurological state of the newborn human brain, and it is nothing like the brain you are using right now to understand these words. At birth, your hippocampus, the structure most responsible for converting experiences into long-term memories, was profoundly underdeveloped. Not slightly behind, not a work in progress. Structurally, functionally, and chemically incapable of doing what it would eventually learn to do. The cells were there, the architecture was not. This phenomenon has a clinical name, infantile amnesia, but that name is deeply misleading because the word amnesia implies something was once there and then lost. What researchers have come to understand is far stranger than forgetting. You never formed those memories in the first place. The machinery didn't exist. It would be like asking why your phone has no photos from before you owned it. But that explanation, satisfying as it sounds, is only the beginning, because it immediately creates a harder question. Your hippocampus began developing rapidly after birth. By the time most children are 2 years old, the structure is functional enough to begin encoding episodic memories, the kind with context, emotion, and sequence. Most adults can recall something, however vague, from around age 2.5 to 3. Yet the window of infantile amnesia doesn't close neatly at birth. It extends. It reaches forward in time and swallows your entire infancy. Children as old as 3 and 4 years old routinely lose memories they demonstrably had. Researchers discovered this through landmark studies beginning in the late 1980s under psychologist Mark Howe at Lancaster University, expanded significantly by Patricia Bauer at Emory University. Bauer's team documented toddlers who clearly remembered specific events. They could describe them, act them out, answer questions about them. Then, years later, those same children had no trace of those memories. Not even a vague emotional residue. Gone. Bauer called this the amnesia transition, the period during which the developing brain actively dismantles previously stored memories, as if performing a controlled demolition to make room for a more sophisticated system. The biological mechanism behind this demolition is one of the most unsettling things developmental neuroscience has uncovered. It involves neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons, occurring at an extraordinary rate inside the hippocampus of infants and young children. New neurons integrate into existing circuits, and in doing so, disrupt the connections that previously encoded memories. Every new neuron wiring itself into your hippocampal network is, in effect, overwriting something already there. Your brain was so busy growing that it couldn't stop erasing. This was confirmed in a 2014 study published in Science by researchers Paul Franklin and Sheena Jocelyn at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. Their team demonstrated that artificially increasing neurogenesis in adult mice caused those mice to forget previously formed memories, mimicking infantile amnesia in a mature brain. When they suppressed neurogenesis in infant mice, those mice retained memories far longer than normal. The relationship was direct and causal. Growth was the mechanism of forgetting. The very process building your brain was simultaneously erasing your experience of being built. This means that your birth, the most neurologically violent event of your life, the moment of transition from a sensory world of warmth and fluid and sound to a world of cold air and light and gravity and noise, was happening to a brain that was simultaneously too immature to record it and too actively growing to preserve anything that came after it. You were there for all of it, you processed none of it, and yet the body holds something. This is where the research becomes genuinely strange. Peter Levine, a biophysicist and trauma therapist, documented in his 2010 book, In an Unspoken Voice, that birth trauma leaves traces not in explicit memory, but in the nervous system itself. His work and subsequent research in somatic neurology has shown that the autonomic nervous system, the part that controls heart rate, breathing, and fight-or-flight response, encodes the physical experience of birth in ways that influence behavior and stress thresholds for the rest of a person's life. You don't remember being born, but your body does. The information was stored in a language your conscious mind cannot read. The research goes further. A 2020 study from the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences found that stress hormones present during birth, particularly cortisol and oxytocin, create biological markers in neural tissue that persist into adulthood and may influence emotional regulation and sensitivity to threat. The conditions of your birth, whether prolonged, whether there was medical intervention, whether the environment was calm or chaotic, may have encoded a physiological memory that shapes who you are without ever being available to conscious recall. You are, in part, a product of something you will never be able to remember. There is also this. The fact that you cannot remember your birth may not be incidental to who you are. It may be a design feature. Developmental psychologist Catherine Nelson at the City University of New York spent decades studying how children acquire autobiographical memory, the sense of a continuous self moving through time. Her research showed that autobiographical memory in children between ages 2 and 4 isn't simply the result of the hippocampus maturing. It is also tied to language acquisition. Children begin forming persistent memories at roughly the same time they develop the linguistic tools to narrate their own experience. Memory, Nelson argued, is not just a recording function, it is a storytelling function. You remember what you can turn into a story. And to turn an experience into a story, you need a self, a narrator, to stand at the center of it. At birth, that narrator did not yet exist. The brain was generating experience but had no stable I to attribute it to. There was sensation, there was processing, there was something it was like to be you, entering the world, but no internal voice saying, "This is happening to me." The self that would eventually claim your memories, the one reading these words right now, had not yet been assembled. Your birth happened before you, in any meaningful psychological sense, existed. Drop a comment below when you think about the fact that your body might carry physical traces of your birth even though your mind has no record of it. Does that feel like a gap in who you are, or does it feel like something has always been there that you just couldn't name? Think about what that means. The first chapter of your life is not just forgotten. It was lived by something that was in the process of becoming you, but was not yet you. The you that carries memories, that has preferences and fears and a sense of continuity, began somewhere in your second or third year of life. Everything before that is a country that exists but has no map. Your neurons fired, your lungs screamed, your skin felt air for the first time. Someone looked down at you, and your existence in the world began. And the person who experienced all of that is gone in a way nothing can recover. Not hypnosis, not therapy, not any technology that exists or is likely to exist. Not because the memory was buried, but because the person who would have remembered it never quite formed. If this is the kind of thing that makes you see something ordinary in a completely different way, subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Like the video if you want more of this. Here is the question worth sitting with. Every story you tell about yourself has a beginning. There is a first memory, however faint, that anchors your sense of who you are and how you came to be. But beneath that first memory, there is a longer story, the most physical, most raw, most formative hours of your existence, that your consciousness can never access. You were present for the beginning of your life. You have no record of it. The self that you are now was built on a foundation you will never be able to inspect. So when you say, "I have always been this way," when you trace a fear or a reflex or a feeling back as far as you can go and hit a wall where memory ends, what exactly is on the other side of that wall? Not nothing, something. Something that happened to a version of you that was real, that was there, that processed the world and responded to it and was shaped by it. A version of you that left no story behind. Only a body, only you.